Yeah, Doctor, she didn't reply my personal message either, so yep.
Yeah, I messaged as well, and she didn't respond. So it's okay. So all right. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you so much for coming to today's class. We are going to resume with our lecture from last week, and then following that, we will be discussing your first assignment. Okay, so be prepared for that. So can you see the slide? Can you see the screen?
Not yet, Doctor.
Just the screen, but not a slide.
Yeah.
No slide. Yeah.
Now?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it's okay now.
Okay, so okay, so just to kind of pick up where we left off last week, in the discussion last week, we looked at, if you remember, two key concepts: text and context. And the text in question is Malaysian literature in English, as you will be studying in this semester. And the context in question is the history and the formation as well as development of Malaysia from the time before independence, during the imperialist authority of the British colonialists, and then afterwards when Malaya was formed, and then afterwards when Malaysia became in 1963. So just a kind of a quick so a very quick timeline, if you like. So you've got this is where we are right now, 2020, and the occupation of the British happened in the 19th century as well as 20th century. Moving into the 20th century, it ended with the independence of Malaysia in 1957. The independence of Malaya, sorry, in independence. And following that, we had the entrance of two other states, Sabah and Sarawak, as well as Singapore, and that formed Malaysia. So this is independence. This is Malaysia, 1963. And then 2 years later, Singapore left, minus Singapore. Singapore left to form its own independent state, independent country in 1965. So what we know as Malaysia was formed in 1963, and British left in 1957. So where we are today, Malaysia today in 2020, has its roots, has its context, historical, sociological, cultural, the diversity, everything happened as part of the context. So when we talk about the context, one of the things that we need to also take into consideration is this idea of how the British did not do enough to promote a Malayan outlook amongst the people, amongst the youth of the country. And so one of the institution is schools. And this aspect of how school can foster a common outlook, you will see this theme in the return as well. Okay, so that was Why is this stuck? Okay. So that was the recap. And for today's class, what we are moving into is the text. So when we talk about fiction in Malaysian literature and English, especially with regards to the first generation and second generation writers of Malaysian literature in English, one of the prominent features is how history is an important part of the way the story of the country is developed. So I want you to kind of like keep that in mind. So these are some important theoretical ideas about the connection between history and fiction. So this is a quote from Noraini and Ruzi, 2007. In fiction, history is given new realities through the changes it has undergone. So I want you to kind of like pay close attention to concepts like history, like realities. You know, what do you mean by realities? What do you mean by fiction? What do you mean by history? So if something is a work of fiction, can it be considered a reality? Is it seen? Is it justifiable to be seen as a reality? Okay, so if something is a work of fiction, can it be seen as a reality? That's something we need to kind of problematize. So another quote by White, 1978, history is, and I quote, a specific plot structure with the set of historical events that the historian wishes to endow with a meaning of a particular kind, which is essentially a literary fiction making operation. So you have to think about it. When we talk about history, all the episodes in history, the historians who capture the episodes and write it in the history books, they themselves, chances are they themselves were not there during those times, right? Chances are more contemporary episodes of world history, we have people who can capture it, we can have digital footage, we can have actual sightings of what happened. But when we talk about history in the 17th century, 18th century, even 19th century, it is almost like the historians themselves are capturing the story of the country in a form of literary text. It's as if it's like that. So what White in 1978 is suggesting is that history too can be seen as a work of literature or a work of fiction making, quote unquote, a work of fiction making. And I think this idea is contentious. You know, it can be contended. It can cause lots of problems, especially amongst historians. Of course, they don't look at themselves as if they are making up stories. They look at themselves as they're doing a real, important factual information about a country. But there's always two sides to every story. One of the plays that you will be reading is Ki Tuan Chai's We Can Blank You, Mr. Birch. In that play, Ki Tuan Chai challenges this idea of, is history facts or fiction? So we'll come back to this theme of how history, how far is history a representation of facts, or is it a little bit of fictitious representation? So is history factual or fictional? This is something we can problematize, something that novelists and literary writers do so challenge. So I'm just introducing you to some theories in case you are interested in any of these for your own research, for this course, for your final project, or maybe for other courses. So when we talk about revisioning this is an important idea, important key idea. There is a vision, okay? And what fiction does is to revision it, meaning to come back to it again, come back to the episode of history, but giving a fresh perspective. Theories that deal with revisioning include new historicism, revisioning, you know, and both theories allow the writer, the post-colonial fictional writer, and Maniam, K.S. Maniam is one of them. Okay, what new historicism, revisioning, what it does is it allows writers, fictional writers, it gives the writers a kind of a poetic license. It gives the writers the permission to present an alternative perspective of history. You know, so the representation of the country's history that is portrayed in the work of fiction is one person's perspective. And one person's perspective may not be shared by other people, but then this is an important perspective that we need to study. So that's where literature comes in. And back to the idea of the social reality and how the author himself also has a role to play in developing and defining the country's social reality, not just not just the authority, not just the authority who gets to define it, or the everyday people who gets to define it, the author himself. So you've got the authorities defined social reality, you've got the everyday defined social reality, and a third one in my own reading of literature is that the author himself or herself has a social reality to present. So this is an important quote. Writers can make a conscious attempt to foreground underlying social political agenda if they are aware of the position they are writing from. So the social reality that the author puts forward, it's based on the position that they hold. They may have a position that is not shared by the authority, you know, that adds to the everyday reality. So I want you to kind of keep that in mind. So we've got context and text, and we have the author-defined social reality. And a little bit of theory in terms of revisioning history, you know, why is it important? How does it serve a purpose? It empowers the people who were once silenced or marginalized or even forgotten or even stereotyped as the other. This is what revisioning does. It allows people whose voices are not heard in the works of history, you know, who are marginalized and othered. It gives them a kind of agency, a kind of voice to allow their stories to be heard. And one such story that you will be reading, which is The Return, is the voice of the migrants. In this case, the Indian laborers who came to Malaya through the British policy of bringing laborers from southern part of India to work the rubber estates. What's their story? How have they been? What's their experience? How have they? You know, what have they endured? What have they gone through? How have they struggled? What are some of their challenges? That is an aspect that is not necessarily covered in history. But what the writer does is sheds a light on that episode through the work of fiction. So the writer in question is K.S. Maniam, and some of you have introduced him very well in the couple of weeks before this in one of your tasks. So I'm just going to pick up some issues, some aspects that I want us to kind of probe. So one of the things that K.S. Maniam says about his writing, about how he looks at the word factual and fictional, how he plays with that idea. So to him, fiction is the destiny of the people from whom I cannot have been, for whom I have not been able to make a complete break. So he is connected to a group of people and their destiny. Even though he wanted to break from it, he couldn't. Their history is his history, whether he wants to accept it or not. You know, there is a kind of tug of war, there is a kind of struggle. In this statement, he is almost declaring that he is struggling with the idea of being attached to a group, to the destiny of a people, basically the Indian Malaysians, to their destiny, to the things, the things that they have endured from their ancestors. You know, he's not able to make a complete break. So the unsaid, if you like, the thing that he is not telling you is that he wanted to make a complete break. He wanted to break from their history, from the things that his people struggled to endure. It's not his story, you know, but he finds that he is not able to break from that connection. So there is in him the exploration of the past, the present, the internal struggles, the individual struggles, the conflicts, and then the ambition of the Indian community. So it's a lot of things for one man to take, you know. So there is a kind of a social a mission that he embodies in his writing. You know, think about it, like if you are a writer and you just want to write whatever you want to write, how do you feel if you are tied down to having to explore the past, the present, the psychology, the conflicts, the ambitions of your community? Do you feel that this empowers you, or do you feel that this imprisons you? How would you feel? I mean, I want you to put yourself in the role of the writer. How would you feel if you were a writer and your writing had to represent your community? How would you feel? Can I have somebody to respond?
Yes, Victor.
Yes, go ahead. How would you feel, Ali, if you had to write and represent the people of Iraq in your works of fiction? How would you feel?
As to make myself as an author, just to present the reality that I have on right now. So I will represent all the realities of the Iraqi people, such like the struggle, the problems, all the things around me will represent not only me, but all the reality of our Iraqi people.
Would you be able to represent the concerns, the conflicts, the ambitions of all the Iraqi people, or are you able to only represent one aspect of it?
Not only the struggle or the problems, but all the reality. I just focusing on the reality of the community that I live on.
That means the way you see the author social reality, the way you see the author define social reality.
Exactly.
It's that defined social reality is that the author is the author has to perform this social mission to represent the issues and concerns of his community. You would agree with this, Ali?
Yes. Also, I will just represent the plural society, not only the social reality, but also the plural society. That means that are here many Muslims, many Jews, and many Christians. So the way that you are lived, the problem, the struggle, that will represent all the religious here.
So your representation in your works of fiction will be more diverse. It will not represent one community,
Yes.
but it will have a more diverse representation. This is what you're saying, yes?
Yes, exactly, sir.
Yeah. So if you think about Maniam, his representation it's not the representation of the entire country. It's not the representation of Malaysia. It's not. It's
Do you know
more
Dr. why?
representation. Yeah.
Do you know why? Because he's not an original, not his roots, not Malaysian, because he's an Indian author.
Yeah. You see, that's why this particular quote is important. You know, as he says, that fiction I ambiguously call the destiny of the people from whom I have not been able to make a complete break. So the answer is he wants to try to make a complete break, but he can. It holds him. It holds him responsible, accountable. The past, the present, the psychology, the fictions, the ambitions. The reason I'm spending a little bit more time on this is because one of the arguments or criticisms that K.S. Maniam received when his first novel, The Return, was published was that it wasn't a Malaysian literature. It did not represent Malaysia. There was no representation of the diversity of this country. Exactly like what Ali is saying. You know, if Ali was going to be writing, if he was an author, he would represent, you know, the Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, the various communities that live side by side in his country, for instance. But what Maniam has done in the first novel is he is only preoccupied with one community. And that became a criticism so his novel did not receive good reviews at the beginning when it was first published. But I have my own arguments. I have my own issues that I want to raise. I will raise that later. But however, Maniam also says this statement, and I want us to probe a little bit. So these things are part of the context. What the author says, the history of the country, all these will form your knowledge of the context to the text that you are studying. I need you to kind of make that connection. Context includes what the author says, some of his own ideas and thoughts and philosophies. So this helps as well. So in this quotation, he says, "It must be borne in mind that my works do not merely exploit my community's domicile in Malaysia, its history and problems, purely for the sake of promoting a communal outlook." This is not what he says. This is not what he sets out to do. This is not his mission, right? But rather, he says, I use the community and their history and the problems, use them as any writer would in order to present through the immediate and the local preoccupations of the more universal picture of man and society in conflict. So what in fact he's saying is, if you read The Return will help you see the bigger picture, which is this, the preoccupation, the universal picture of man and society in conflict. So The Return is like a microcosm of a more macro reading of life, of society, of people, of conflicts between people. So this is what he says. This is what Maniam says. So that's part of our context. Now, you as a reader will have your own opinions. You as a reader will have your own opinions. So I want to start with asking you to probe on that aspect. The writer says his work of fiction even though it's about one particular community, and nobody here is an Indian Malaysian with the background that Maniam experienced. Last year when I taught this course, we had Ranjani, and she shared with us some of the things that she experienced growing up. And then we could compare, as an Indian Malaysian, we could compare Ranjani's experience and her parents' experience with what is represented in the return. But all the same, I want to challenge all of us to try to see whether we are able to find connection with the text. No matter where you are, you may be Iraqi, you may be from China, you may be Malaysian of other ethnic ethnic background. It could be Chinese, it could be Malay. But the question I want to kind of think about, for us to probe about, is can we find connection with the story that is being presented to us in the return? You know, so some early or initial questions that you can ask would be, what is this text about? Where is it set? Who are the important characters? What's the conflict? What aspect of Malaysian history is being represented or being revisioned? How far does Maniam succeed in making this story universal? So we're very unique right now because you've got voices from the Iraqi background, you have voices from the Chinese nationality, you have a Malaysian of, you know, Husna, she's a Malay, Jennifer is Chinese, okay? So you've got a kind of a range, you know, all of us will have our own perspective when you're reading a novel like The Return. So I want us to kind of probe into that. So my task for you, if you remember from last week and the week before, was for you to, oh, I didn't switch on my camera, sorry, was for you to read and read the novel and discuss your perspective, your initial ideas and thoughts. And I want to begin the discussion of the novel from that premise. So who would like to go first about The Return?
Yeah, Doctor, I can go first.
Yes, please.
So
We are recording, right? Can you all check on your end? Is this being recorded?
yes, it's recorded.
My computer is a little bit problematic now. So yeah, let me know if you cannot see anything. Go ahead, Jen.
I didn't particularly
No? All right.
I didn't particularly screenshot any tags. But when I read it, it felt something that I would be familiar with within the Malaysian literature that I'm smally, like, you know, little exposed to, because I can somehow relate, but at the same time I cannot relate. But one thing stuck to me was Miss Nancy, because throughout, like, when I actually get into understanding our history when I was in high school, it's always the Westerners or the conquerors, the colonizer, they always think of us as savages, that we need to be taught the proper way of cleaning.
Right.
So this theme of us being savage and us being clean is definitely seen in Rabi's case, when Miss Nancy was teaching him, the class, to use the toothbrush, and also when she teaches them how to use the soap.
Right.
So it is very interesting for me in this sense. It's because we have our own way of cleaning ourselves. Like the Indians, like Rabi say, they uses the ash and everything. For the Chinese, there are certain ways as well. And then the colonizers, they come in, they sort of like teach us the proper way how to clean. So I'm just figuring out like, is toothbrush? Yeah, toothbrush are good. Is what we are doing now. Is what we are using now to clean our teeth. But is our traditional way of cleaning teeth not cleaning ourselves?
Right.
And but at the same time I understand how Miss Nancy was trying so hard to teach the kids how to stay hygienic.
Right.
But she was mocked at the same time by the fellow teachers when she was just trying to, as her role as a teacher, to teach. So what I get from this novel is really just hygiene, cleanliness thing that is really stuck to me, and how they try so hard to progress from their system. Like the Indian system, they have kasta. So I understand, like my Indian friends told me like even kasta system still exists until now. So they explained to me, so I can sort of like relate and feel that, yeah, I understand why education is so important to them. And it's true that they say that the Indian community, they told me, so I'm just saying what they say to me, sharing, is like sometimes the Indian community cannot grow. Partly it's because they are stepping among themselves instead of helping each other out. But I would like to state that within the community, it will be the same way as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, all right, thank you. I want you to probe, Jennifer, if you choose to use the return for any of your assignment. You don't have an e-task specifically for the return, but if you know, what I'm trying to do for all of you is I'm going to get you to read as many works as possible. You've got 2 main novels, you've got 1 play, and then you will have short stories and poems and stuff. I'm going to get you to read as possible, and you decide which text speaks to you in terms of that you are able to say something about it. And if you find that you are interested to say something more and probe into it for one of your assignments, you've got 2 assignments, the seminar as well as the final project. All right. If you want to explore the text further, you can. Okay. So for instance, Jennifer, when you talked about the hygienic practice that Ravi developed by going to the English school. So one of the things that you can do is to follow that line, follow that plot line, and do a few things. Look at what he has to go through, what Ravi has to go through in order to be able to incorporate the practices, the hygienic practices of brushing teeth with a toothbrush and toothpaste, of washing the hair with the shampoo and all this, that Miss Nancy teaches him. What did he have to go through? Do you remember what he had to go through before his father took him to buy the toothpaste and toothbrush at the Chinese store? What did he have to go through?
He got whacked, man.
He got beaten up by his father. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think how to say, it's like you have a set of belief for sometimes, and then sometimes and then just suddenly someone pulls it out from you or just stuff something towards you and you're uncomfortable about it, so you don't know how to react. So sometimes you use violence as a way to express it. I mean, maybe that's not the correct thing, but I mean, yeah.
One of the things that I want you to probe as well as all of you, not just looking at the return. The return is just an example. One of the things that I want you to kind of like probe when you are looking at the text, you do a micro level reading of the text, whatever it is that you're looking at. In Jennifer's case right now, she's looking at one particular episode in the story. And in that episode, the key characters would be Ravi. Oh. The key characters would be Ravi and Miss Nancy. I don't know what's wrong.
Okay, doctor.
All right, never mind. So the micro level reading, you are focusing on close textual reading of a particular episode. Okay, and then you have to also ask yourself at the macro level. I can't seem to. Okay, never mind. At the macro level, you know, at the stop. So if you draw a bigger circle around this, something's wrong with the screen. If you draw a bigger circle over the micro level, that would be a more at a more macro level representation. The macro level will challenge you to ask questions like, how does this episode rather help me develop the theme of this novel? Okay. For instance, you may look at education. What's the purpose of education in the bringing up of young people? One of the things that you said was, you know, Ravi's father felt threatened that his cultural ways is being changed or challenged by the schooling that Ravi experiences. So, and he feels upset that Ravi wants to brush his teeth a different way compared to the rest of them. So he's in his mind, in Ravi's dad's mind, in Naina's mind, education means something. But when Ravi attends school, education represents more than that. So you may probe the theme of education in the reading of The Return. That could be your reading of this novel. So this is how you start, by looking at the micro level. What am I interested in? When I read the entire novel, what stands out to me? And based on that, you kind of draw a bigger circle and start to find a more universal theme based on that micro level. So this is how every novel and every text that you read, you as a reader can find points of connection. You begin at the micro level. Okay, Jennifer, do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is just a suggestion. If you are interested to probe into this theme, you may do so. So I see possibilities. Yeah.
I would like to ask other questions like after this, but let other express about KS Maniam first.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please make sure you got your questions written down. Okay. Who like to go next?
Huda raised her hand.
Oh, sorry. I'm something's wrong because I can't see anyone's response here on my screen. I really need to get a new laptop. Huda, did you want to go next? Or Ali, did you say you wanted to go next?
It's okay for me, Doctor, but I see that
okay, now I see.
Huda,
Now I see. Yes, now I see. Huda, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I have something to add to Jenny, to Jennifer.
Go ahead. Go ahead. But share your thoughts. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, if you don't mind. I have something here about Ravi when he was thrust by a Tamil laundry supervisor for talking with some visiting English children and thereby challenging one of the unwritten rules of the colonial caste system. Ravi resolved in one dramatic moment of definition to escape from Bidong. I turned away, he said, I turned away from the God who ruled my people. Because, you know, Jenny, she is, Jennifer, she is interesting in this, the scene of the toothbrush, and it is connected to education. That's why I can kind of recommend her to see it from this perspective, from how he was punished and he was whipped because they don't want him, as if they don't want him to get this progress or to develop himself or to leave this community. I think as for Maniam, he couldn't break through, as you said. He couldn't leave this because he's just this, you know, fetal, and he is in the womb of this community. He was connected by this cord to this placentia. He can't leave it because his all his feelings and sensation nourished by this core from his own community. He's just a fetal. He cannot leave his community. I think no one, because he carries all the bitterness, the suffer of his people, the failure of his father, his grandma. As for him, they are the closest persons in his life. He is holding them in his heart. Even he he went to England and he goes here and there, but still he has this feeling, this suffering, and he cannot get rid of it because he's just a fetal connecting to the womb of this community by this cord that connect him to the placenta. Thank you.
Okay, good. Next. Huda, was that your input, or did you want to add to Jennifer's discussion?
No, this is just for Jennifer, and mine is still, it is not my presentation.
Okay, would you like to present now?
Okay. Well, Doctor, I said something about Malaysia and about the 4 languages that predominant. They are Malay, English, Chinese, and Tamil. And I said something about, you know, the Sultanate, the fall of it. Then at 1511, when Portuguese came and invade the country, then the Duchess, something like that. And that's why they are, you know, they are 4 languages. And we have Malaysia is, sorry. And I have said something about for Naival. He was the first who emphasized more strongly than another writer that the sort of society to be observed in Indonesia, Burma, and different sociological type than different from European society. They said that plural societies, people of different ethnic origins, do not meet each other except in the marketplace, where the members of each group must dispose of their goods and service to members of the other group. As a result, no common social will or social demand develops. This is for, as you said, Doctor, we have to say something about a plural society. Yes. Then I have said something about the alienation and seeking self-interrogation makes each group cling to its roots and its own culture, especially among the prominent individuals of the dominant groups, to connect their roots to a solid ground. This notion can be depicted on many, if not all, writers and scholars from different ethnic groups living in a country of immigration. Such as K.S. Maniam, in all his literary work and novels, the notion of self-interrogation reveals by the protagonist of his work. They always have to set a journey searching for the most important thing that is missing. And I have said something about articles. V.S. Naipaul notion, as he said, after a time, carries his word with him, his own burden of experience, human experience, and literary experience, one deepening the other. Maniam, the Indian immigrant with working class background who were along with his family doomed to live in poverty and suffering. And he has said something in the interview, as I said earlier, Doctor, English matter because it connects you with the world, and as we become radically divided, I want to close this gap. That's why he concentrated on English, and he tried to, make this the problem of his own society and community be heard by others by using English language, as it is it is a global and international language. In his book, The Return, I think he honored his grandmother, Peryathai, when whose back was harmed due to her long, laborious and exhausting journey of struggling to raise 3 sons and many grandsons. She works as tinker, as a peddler, spiritual healer, whatever she works, and she invests all her health and her days just to have the ownership deed of her home that she built it, but she couldn't, so she died in sorrow. In Ravi, I think he's the mirror image of Maniam. And he draws a sketch of a roller coaster journey of his community and family with all their triumphs and failures. Okay, and I have something more to say about, the education. Ravi's strategy was different from his grandmother and father's. He resort to education and choose English language as a device to make him different person, and his voice can be heard by others. This strategy emerged, I think, that the turn moment in his life when he was trashed by the Tamil laundry supervisor, as I said before, Doctor, when he challenged one of the children. Ravi resolved in one dramatic moment of definition from, and he said, "I turned away from the God who ruled my people," because as he the grandmother, she felt to have this ownership deed. His father has to burn himself in this ritual ceremony. He, as if he sacrificed herself for the sake of his maybe sons, his family, and the community.
Just a kind of a footnote to what Huda has introduced to us. One footnote is that the ownership of the land is given to the people who lived in the land, who are considered to have lived in the land even before the colonialists came. and migrants, the Chinese, the Indians, or migrants from any other parts of the world coming to Malaysia, they are not, it's not easy for them to own the land. So what Ravi's dad suffered from was he wanted to feel a sense of belonging to the land, and he fought to have the land in which they lived and they worked and they raised their family to belong to him. So in the end, when he couldn't get that, he ended up burning himself alive in that spot. You know, his mother, Pri Atai, died in that land. So there is a kind of tragic circumstance that is also tied to the history of the Indians in Malaya that Maniam seems to echo in the story of Kanan, Ravi's father. Okay, so that is another context, Huda, if you are interested in that aspect of this notion of land. In the Middle East, the Palestinians have the same kind of issues, you know, that they want to go back to their land. So that land is a kind of a strong sense of identity and belonging and home and all that. So with migrant communities, one of the things that is also a conflict, a source of conflict, is to what extent is the land of your adopted nation, to what extent are you rooted to that land? So that is an issue that you will find in a lot of Maniam's works, his short stories, his plays, his novels. All three of his novels, in fact, dealt with the same theme. He wrote one novel in 81, sorry, another one in 93 or 91, I forget, and the third novel in 2003, almost 10 years apart. And all three novels dealt with the same issue of land ownership for the migrant, for the Indian community, the Indian Malaysian community. So in The Return, the Indian community they are part of the migrant community because it was like Malaya was receiving independence, and one of the constitutional rights for the migrant community is for them to get citizenship, automatic citizenship. And another issue is this notion of land ownership. All right, so that is something that Ravi's father like suffered at the end of his life, suffered greatly. And you're right that the conflicts that Ravi experienced is different from his grandmother's and his father. You're absolutely right. So there is a kind of generation gap. That's another. Are interested in The Return, that's another theme that you may look at. What's the difference between the first generation migrant, i.e. his grandmother, and Ravi, the first generation Malayan? You know, what's the difference in terms of their ambition, their hopes, their expectations? What do they crave for? Ravi craves for something different compared to his father, compared to his grandmother. So you may look at that theme of generational sense of identity and how that is reflected in The Return. Okay, thank you. Who would like to go next?
Can I, Doctor?
Yes, please.
Okay. At the beginning, Doctor, actually, before I read the novel, I just feel that it is difficult for me to understand the events of the novel, as long as I'm not familiar with, I'm not read it before. I just like make myself, I'm not like, for example, Geneva or any another student with us. Yes, because from in the text from another canon. Okay. So
So you find this novel very challenging to read? Is that what you're saying?
This is at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, but later on, when I read the novel, I actually find myself very interesting. It seems to be very attractive with it. From all around the novel, it is very interesting to read the events, and so interesting about Ravi and how he was struggling to find himself inside Malaysia. So the return in general is less specifically Malaysian than universally diasporic in focus.
Yeah.
The narrative action is seen through the eyes of Ravi, who Malaysian-born straddles the interstices between traditional Indian cultural religious values and colonial British influences. And attempts to create a sense of spatial belonging and fulfill a need for connection and identity. So Ravi is the central protagonist in the narrative, powerful image and the dislocation of his grandmother and particularly his father, Canaan, dominate the textual landscape and foreground the psychological complexities faced by displaced individuals trying to justify existence in surroundings that are concurrently familiar and alien. Then I just focus on the something at page 14 that is say, how does one describe the land? It's something similar what Huda referred before. At page 14, he say, how does one describe the land one lived in but never saw? It was more tangible than the concrete one. We felt it through every day. Darkness gave it its true dimensions. In this passage, Doctor, the discordant tones of entrapment and exhilaration represent a strong awareness of a reliance upon ancestral memories and amidst the oppressive existence which confront the Tamil community within 1950s rural Malaysia.
Yeah.
Increasingly, the lack of physical and psychological brought about the cramped, impoverished conditions of the compound and the multiple marginalization experienced by Ravi and his family manifest themselves in transitory and destiny-creating individual and collective identities. The destructive anxieties of aspiration and exile provide the character's principal motivation. Minimum depicts an ethnic minority's identity in a state of flux, with no real concept of national belonging or individual worth. Here I also find a very important concept. It is exactly, just 1 second. It's related with Ravi and how he wants to find a land. Ravi has, of course, moved away from the territorial imagination of his Malaysian ancestors and refused to associate his identity with a possession of land. Being exposed to the conditions of modernity and having appropriated to the deterritorialized sensibility of the diaspora radically calls into the question the idea that one must have land. This is very important for me as I see, Doctor. That the idea that one must have land in order to be a person. He values personal skills and autonomy more than the possession of land. Ravi explained, as I find that, Doctor, at page 140, I stood outside Biratha's and Nani's preoccupations. Their imagination could not grasp the real complexity that surrounded us. I had watching Biratha's failure to earn a home in this land, decided to acquire a school that would allow me a comfortable and threatened existence. Doctor, this is remind me with a very a popular saying in Iran to say الأرض وطن ومن لا وطن له ومن لا أرض له لا وطنه. It means that the one should have any person should have a ground, and the one who don't have a ground or don't have land, he just like don't have nationality. Yes, thank you.
I just wondered though, Ali, thank you so much. You know, before I forget, if you are interested to develop your argument, this argument that you have presented to us, if you are interested to develop this for your assignment, for your second assignment or your final assignment, let me know. You can start working on it already. I can give you some pointers. I can guide you along. So that's number one. Okay. I wondered though, Ali, people of your generation, as well as people who are younger than you, how far is that expression of the wataniyah, the land, the connection to the land, yeah? How far is that an important aspect of your identity? You are right. Like people of my mother's generation, you know, when you purchase a property, it has to be a landed property. It has to be. I live in a condominium. You know, I live like 12 stories up. Because I like to see the sky. You know, if you ever get to my house for a visit, you know, you'll see the sky. That's what I like. I don't want to be on a landed property where I see other people's walls and other people's houses and I feel crammed up. I like to see the sky. So the higher, the better. But then there is no land ownership. So for certain generations, land ownership defines your sense of identity. I wonder if people of your generation, Jennifer, Alice, and Ali, you know, you people, if Husna was here, it would be Husna. Husna, if you're watching this, I'm asking this question for you as well. I wondered if the younger generation looks at this land ownership in the same way, you know, especially with social media opening up the borders, where whatever is happening in other parts of the world, in America or in Australia and New Zealand or China or whatever, it feels as if we are part of the larger global society. I wondered if this notion of land ownership is as applicable to the younger generation as it is to writers of Maniam's generation. So what's your take on it? Anybody wants to start? Maybe Ali can start first, or Alice, would you like to say something?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah.
And the people in China, like my generation, we don't think the land ownership very important, because the land ownership in China belongs to our country, not anyone.
Right.
It's belong to country. And
this is a socialist society.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there is don't have some relation with us, but in China, people like my parents, they value more about I think house is very important for them. Before they get married, the man should have a house. Yeah. And
so there is a distinction between a house and land.
Yes.
Okay. Because land is owned by the authority, by the state.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What about in Iraq? Ali, did you want to say something?
Yes, doctor. For Iraqi people, the one that represents you the one that you just like raise your identity is land. So
Land.
if you have, yes, if you have a land, you are a person. Okay.
Even the younger generation feel like this?
It's just like teach us from the beginning of our days. Just like
you are taught
baby.
this from young. You're taught this from
Yes,
young. Right,
you have to be a man. You have to have a land. So this is your land. If you want to be a man, so this is your land. Okay. If you don't have land, you are not a man, and you are afraid to choose between two of them. And as I told you before, minutes, that we have a popular saying: the one who have a land, he can call a person. Okay, if you don't, okay, you are free. So land is your identity.
Right.
Yes.
And you are recognized by society based on this connection to the land. When you have the land, your status in society is also recognized. This is right. Yeah.
Yes, doctor, of course.
Good. Huda, did you've raised your hand. Did you want to say something?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
As you said, doctor, there is a difference between the notion of our old people and the second generation. I'm not so young like Ali, Jennifer, and Alice, but I've been raised in, you can say, wealth family, and we have so many lands and houses. What we were going through before, the tyranny of the president and the wars, this things that make us, all my family, they sold their houses and their lands, and they went abroad. Yeah, because the last one was my uncle. He has, land. His house was on a land of 1,000 meter. Yeah, he sold it, and he is now a migrant in Germany. The other in Sweden. So as for me, because this what happened to me, I am not attached to my homeland like before, because all my roots are cut from the country. Yet I have this small flat. It's mine, because we sold so many big houses and lands. Just this flat, and I am wondering, after my two aunts will die, maybe I sell it and I'll go abroad. I don't know. I am confused, and I don't know what to do. But as for the generation in general, they don't attach to the land or the house. No matter. They can, rent a house, or they can rent a flat, whatever, because as if this is a temporary situation, and they have to leave. They don't know if they will stay at their homeland, and they suffer. So we suffer so much, doctor.
Right.
Or we go abroad. So I think there is a confusion in this matter. As for Ali, I don't know. Maybe his family have a different perspective. He is from, each family has his own, her own perspective.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because you see, that's when we talk about everyday defined social reality, there are, like, in Malaysia around 32 million people. So everybody will have their own reality, or everybody will have their own perspective or their own definition of social reality. So likewise, I expect in Iraq, you have opinions like Ali. So Ali echoes one perspective of the everyday defined social reality. Huda will represent another perspective. Then there are other perspectives as well. So likewise, in the Malaysian context, it's not older generation versus younger generation. It's not like that. So when you're reading the novel, The Return, you hear within Ravi's generation, the younger generation, you have voices. Ravi represents one voice of the younger generation of the Indian Malaysian in this context. Then there are other voices as well, and Ravi's voice is unique because he appears to challenge the status quo of his society, of the Indian in the estates. He's challenging them because he wants to raise himself in the caste. He wants to go beyond the Dobi son's life. He wants to raise higher, and one way is through education, because with education he is able to go higher. But you notice his siblings, his brothers and sisters, do not experience the same kind of challenge that he experiences, right? So even within the younger generation, so it's not the older generation against the younger generation. It's not like that. I'll send you a copy of my article that I wrote, even before I did my PhD on The Return, looking at this concept called the inappropriate other. So Ravi is positioned as the inappropriate other within his own community. He's not out completely, he's not in completely. He's almost like at the margin of his own community. So Trin Minha, in her concept, in her discussion, used this concept called the inappropriate other. So I used that concept to study the character development or construction of Ravi. So you're right, Ravi plays that kind of a unique role. In all societies, you have the difference. I want to hear from Jennifer as a Malaysian, as a young Malaysian. What's her take on this land issue? Jen?
Okay. So
you're the sole representation from Malaysia. So yeah.
No, but I would so first of all, my cultural background is close to Dong Lai's cultural background. So I will explain, like in the Chinese community, it's similar because in terms of land, probably I would say for my generation, we don't, like just in terms of generation, we don't think too much about land, but we think about the houses.
Prosperity.
Like, yes, a place to stay. That's the most important thing rather than the land. So we will look for houses, like whether it's flat, apartment, and stuff like that. But I think in terms of land, the issue of how important it is will be probably my grandfather's time or maybe my parents' time, because that time when before the Japanese came, or those time during the small war, like the wars are going on, people owned land and they made a living out of the land.
Right.
So the land is important for them. Right. And then I think that in terms of house, in their mindset is, I stay on this land. This is my home. Therefore, I would like to have this land as mine. Right. So I think in terms of that, they perceive that land as a piece for them to build a house for their family to stay. So when we, after economic and stuff like that, we start to realize that, no, land is from government, and then they'll build houses and we'll stay in the houses. So we change to think that, we will get that land. Oh, and in Malaysia, there's like two types. One is like freehold and one is not freehold. What's that called? Leasehold. Yeah. So in terms of that, those kind of stuff, I would say. Yeah.
So land is not so much an issue, but your property,
Yeah, property, like a place for you to rest, go home to. I think that is the more prominent issue with youngsters now. Yeah, because it's like you want to move out, but you can't move out because you can't. But then you like own a place and stuff like that. And yes, Donglai did mention that in terms of marriage, guys have to be the one that is like capable enough to own a house. I feel bad, but yeah, it's still going on like this right now. So for the Malay or the Indian community, I'm not sure. So yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on with the discussion on the return. Who else hasn't? So far, we've done Jennifer, Eileen.
Alice.
Yes, doctor.
Who would like to go next?
I think I'm the last.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to talk about the education and the national identity in the return. And before I read this novel and I take this class and I don't know the plural society. Yeah, and I read this novel very slowly.
Good.
Because there's so much, there's lots of things that I'm not familiar. And for the education, the effect of Miss Nancy on Ravi impressed me most. I think she is a British colonial. She is on behalf of the British colony, and she thought her culture superior to others. When it come to the she taught the Ravi to use a toothpaste and a toothbrush and change their way to clean. And they think she think the coconut oil like rotten butter. And when she taught stories, the rich eat children, but in the Indian festival, it's a celebration. And Ravi changed by the effect of the Miss Nancy, and he wanted to be a man like a British man and get a higher position in his community, and he accepted the British rule. For example, he built a reading corner in his house, and realized his home dirty and in a mess. And there are some conflicts between he and his friends when they played together after he went to the English school, and they think he was a white monkey. And for the national identity, I don't think he thought himself Malaysia when he had the independence of the Malaysia, and there are no pleasant feeling of him.
There is no.
I think.
What did you say? There is no.
But not touch him very much. Yeah. And when I try to understand the plural society, I think I find it's a little familiar with. It's a little similar with the situation in China. It's Hong Kong and Macau and Taiwan. It's a part of China. They are part of China, and but the people in mainland China cannot go the Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan directly. We need something like an ID card or a passport. I can show you. It's like this. Can you see it?
Identification card.
Yeah. It's a passport, something like passport to go for me to go Taiwan. Yeah.
So that passport, you can only use it to enter Taiwan. Can you use that passport to travel the world?
No. There's another passport to travel other.
Right.
Yeah. And there's Macau and Hong Kong.
Right. So without that identification card, you are not allowed to enter Macau and Hong Kong.
Yes. And with those, I can only stay in Macau and Hong Kong for 7 days. If people from mainland China to want to work in Macau, Hong Kong, or Taiwan, there are more strict policy. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the national identities have some connections to the education. In Hong Kong, for example, they have different system with mainland China, and there some people like young people like me in Hong Kong don't think they belong to China.
Right.
Yeah. For example, my sister last year went to study in Leeds University in UK. Yeah. And her roommate is a Hong Kong. Is a people from Hong Kong, and it's a girl, and she doesn't think she belongs to China. I don't know, but it's the truth. Because their textbook in Hong Kong is still it's not changed. It's the teacher in their school taught her and the people, the students, just like UK or yeah.
So you don't feel you are part of something. You don't feel like you're part of the country. Is that how it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because the education, I think, and I think the education is play an important role in the national identity. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I just shared on your WhatsApp group. I just shared the article that I published based on my PhD research on K.S. Maniam's novels. I looked at K.S. Maniam's novels as a case study, and I developed a reading of his novels, looking at it from the lens of multiculturalism. But I just want to raise a couple of points, based on past research. This is a paragraph from my article. Like I said, this is based on my PhD research that I completed in 2007, and I graduated in 2008, inshallah. So one of the criticisms that the novel, K.S. Maniam's novel, The Return, which was published in the early 80s, 1981, one of the criticisms that was, given to him was by a fellow Malaysian diasporic writer, Shirley Lim, Professor Shirley Lim, who is a professor in one of the universities in America. Shirley Lim is also very prolific. She writes poetry, short stories, memoirs. She's a diasporic Malaysian Chinese writer. So now Asian American. She's an American nationality now. So she's an Asian American. But one of the criticisms that she presented about The Return in 2001 reads like this. So I just want to draw your attention what Shirley Lim says. Quote, an unknowledgeable reader may well believe Malaysia to be, even if pluralistic, an Indian dominant nation, or at least not a Malay dominant country. So the criticism is that because K.S. Maniam's The Return predominantly focuses on the Indian community, people coming from outside like Ali, Huda, Alice, reading this novel may think that Malaysia is an Indian dominant nation like India, or like parts of India, like subcontinent, the Indian subcontinent, And another criticism against Maniam by Tang in 2001 also asserts that this narrative, The Return, is too inward looking. It's so inward looking that it disregards the larger multi-ethnic racial society, multiracial, multicultural, multi-religious society that is Malaysia. But my argument, this is my argument in my PhD thesis, 2008, Raihana 2008. My argument is that, and I quote this verbatim, in actuality, The Return is a vivid portrayal of life in colonial Malaya that depicts the major ethno-cultural communities such as Indian, Chinese, and Malays as living separately from one another. The lack of interaction between communities create a strong sense of isolation, which consequently colors the development of their identity. So that's my argument for The Return. Even though there are countless other criticisms about The Return and how The Return is very ethnocentric, very monocultural, very inward-looking, disregarding the other aspects of Malaysian identity. My argument is that The Return is in fact a good representation of what Malaya was like during British occupation as well as moving into independence. So if you put a camera into one corner of Malaya during that time, early 40s and then 50s, towards the end of 40s, 50s, within that decade, those couple of decades, if you put a camera in one corner of Malaya, you will get a kind of story that Maniam is painting, which is, this is the reality. This is all the people that I see. I don't see anybody else. So my story cannot fabricate Malaya that never was for me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So this, I feel that The Return is an important novel because of that. The Return is a dramatic reminder that the Malaysian history, our colonial legacy, is one in which a prominent ethnocentric outlook of life is a reality. That's how it was for our forefathers, for our grandfathers and their generation. So my argument in my PhD research was that The Return is an important text, not because it presents every aspect of Malaysian life, that's not why the return is important. The return is important, back to my lecture notes just now. The return is important because it revisions one aspect of our history, of Malayan history. And it makes that aspect of the Malayan history come to life. When you read the historical books, when you read history books, you will see, okay, plural society, the country is like this, they live side by side, but they never engaged, they met in the marketplace. Okay, that's fine. But when you read a work of fiction that is set in that setting, and you read through it and you find that, there aren't anybody else but one community, you are left with the question, where is everybody? Why is only one community represented? How come this community does not meet with other members of the society? When do they get to meet? Why is there so few interactions? So then you realize this is what the historical legacy that our forefathers and foremothers experienced. So I just wanted to kind of raise your attention there. You may read the rest of the rest of the society, the rest of the novel, and compare it with my article. But there is that, I don't know whether it was Ali or who, I forget, it was Ali, maybe I think it's Ali, who talked about this invisible landscape. I want to bring that up as well, and how the Indians in Bidong, as set in the return in this novel, they experienced this land in a very detached way, separated from the rest of the country, but very much connected to an invisible land, which is India. So there is that kind of spiritual, cultural connection to the land that is away from them, but there is a kind of separation from the land that they live. So they are part of this Malayan society, but they are not connected to the society. They are away from the Indian land, but they are more connected to the Indian land than they are to the land that they belong in or they live in. So that is the paradox. That is the kind of like a very stark conflict that these characters experience. And every generation, from Priyatai to Kannan to Ravi, every generation, the experience is slightly removed or slightly different or further removed. Yeah. So what I wanted to kind of like draw your attention to, when you study the text, I finally got this thing to work. So when you study the text, you each have your own kind of a micro level reading of the story. Whatever that micro level is, it might start with certain characters. It might start with certain episodes of the story. Maybe the setting is the school, what Miss Nancy does to Ravi. None of you brought up the episode where Miss Nancy gave Ravi an English name. Do you remember what that name was?
Ernie, maybe.
Was it the character?
Ernie. It's Ernie.
Was it Ernie?
Yeah, she called him as Ernie because he went to the front of the class to read the book.
Right. So the episode in the story, in the novel, you can take that episode and develop a kind of a macro level thematic reading of the novel. So if I asked you, based on that episode where Miss Nancy gives Ravi a new name, what's a good theme that you can use to probe that discussion? What can you analyze that episode for? What kind of a theme can you analyze that episode for?
Identity.
Yes, what else? Who decides your identity?
Mm, it's either,
Education.
yeah, it's either
Sorry?
how you,
It's,
The
it's
feel of belonging.
Belonging.
Yes, the feel of belonging.
Okay, what else?
the
Identity.
education, the one take.
Importance of education. But this notion, when you are given your name, like if any one of you, if you're familiar with the various African American public figures who changed their name, like Malcolm X, like Muhammad Ali, they changed their name from the name that was given to them, what they call their slave name. They changed it when they are full grown. Like Muhammad Ali, when he became a Muslim, Cassius K was he calls it his slave name. He changed it to Muhammad Ali. When he became a Muslim, Malcolm X, he dropped his surname. He put an X there because he said the surname is usually the surname of the slave master. That the slaves received their slave master's surname as part of their name. So why is name an important aspect of our sense of identity? What does the name do? When I see the name Huda and Husna and Ali and Jennifer and Alice, or or your Alice, your Chinese name. What does a name, if a name like Dong Lai, what does the name represent?
it gives you place, a representation of maybe who you are, or which part of what community or what nationality, or how you might be as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe the place doctor, or sometimes even belong to religion.
Yeah. So when Ravi is called Ernie, or when he signs to his pen pal, do you remember the name he signs to his pen pal?
Oh, James?
Yes.
Yes.
He doesn't sign Ravi, he signs James. Right?
Oh.
So what does the name and how does that connect to your sense of identity? So you can probe this to develop a kind of a thematic reading. You can develop a thematic reading of this novel. So my suggestion is, whatever you find of interest at the micro level, you can develop into a macro level reading by making that micro level concern into an important theme, like transforming whatever it is that you are interested in, that you have identified, transforming it into a macro level reading by coming up with a theme. This is how we develop critical response to any text that we are reading. Always start with, what is it about this story that attracts my attention? You notice I didn't start off by saying, what is this story about? I didn't ask you all to tell me, what's this story about? That would be a very elementary way of approaching it, because what this story is about will change according to the perspective. Somebody may read it and say, this story is about a young child coming to terms with his sense of identity in this kind of a very challenging times in his life. So it's a Bildungsroman. It's a coming of age story. Somebody else will read this and say, no, this is a story of the Indian community struggling to find their identity in a colonial and then independent Malaya. Then somebody else reading it, their summary of the story will differ based on the theme that they are interested in, based on the issue that they want to problematize. And that theme is also based on what caught their attention when they read the novel. And I think this is what I feel Manyam meant when he says that even though his story is about a particular community, there are universal themes that you can find in the reading of these stories, which means you may be in China, you may be in Iraq, you may be in Malaysia, but you may read this novel and be able to see something that you are interested in portrayed in the story. Like I'm a mother, okay? When I read Ravi's story, I'm interested to see how Ravi's mother is not given any voice. Ravi's stepmother seems more important. She is the one who convinces Ravi's father to send Ravi to the English school. Where is his mother? Why is his mother not prominent? Why is his mother not given any voice? I'm interested in that aspect because I come from that mindset, which I feel like this is weird. How come the mother, unless the mother has passed away, but the mother is still there, helping in the laundromat, right? How come his mother is not prominent? The grandmother was very prominent, right? In the first chapter, the entire chapter is about the grandmother. He captured the grandmother's story in the first chapter. Then after that, it's almost like the mother is not mentioned at all. There was one time or two times when his mother was described, but even then, you don't hear anything. How she reacts when he goes to the English school. How does she feel about the idea of him going to in the English school? So, that would be something I'm interested in. So what I'm suggesting to you is for Malaysian literature in English, do not look at this corpus as this is Malaysia. This is nothing to do with me. I don't understand this because this is a foreign context. Okay, don't look at it like that. So I'm saying don't look at it like that. What I'm saying to you is approach every text that I'm going to be asking you to read, poems, short stories, play, and another novel. Approach it from the point of view of you seeing something significant in this story that you want to highlight. And in seeing that significant something, you are developing a thematic reading of that novel. Okay? Is that all right?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, sir. It's all right.
Any question?
So
Everything
far,
is
no
clear, sir.
question.
Okay, good.
So far, so good.
All right. So we're going to end today's class by you telling me how you are coming along with your first assignment.
I'll let the others go first because I have like a question to ask you, Doctor, after this.
Okay.
I don't want to prolong their time.
Okay, good. If you remember your first assignment, you're supposed to do a review of past research on Malaysian literature in English, meaning look at past writers and past criticism, past researchers on this corpus called Malaysian literature in English. So I have given you 2 of my articles based on my PhD research. So you may look at any critical work done by any scholar, be it the scholar is a Malaysian or foreigner, like Peter Wicks is an Australian who has written extensively on K.S. Maniam's novels and as well as Malaysian literature in English. Muhammad Qayyum is also an Australian who was working in Malaysia for many years. He's now gone back to Australia. He also has published extensively. I've shared with you 2 journals, Kajian Malaysia and Asiatic. Did I share the Asiatic journal? I think I did last week, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are many resources out there. So what I want to hear today before we conclude is how are you progressing? Because next week you are supposed to showcase your first assignment.
Doctor, can I go first?
Yes.
I want to talk about the national identity and the plural society and their effects on the Malaysian literature in English.
Which article are you using to review, Alice?
I found the article Significance of Malaysian Literature in English.
When was it published?
It's 2018. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, what's your question?
The first is what is the national identity, and second is what's the national identity of Malaysia or the people in Malaya. Yeah. And the third is what causes the national identity. And the fourth is how does the plural society affect the Malaysian literature in English.
So these are questions that you are asking when you are reading the article, or questions that you want to focus on when you do your presentation?
Are you
using questions to structure your presentation?
Yes.
Good. Are you able to find the answers to these questions in the article?
Yes, I have found it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would, in fact, if you could, I would, in fact, support it by looking at maybe a couple more articles, just to kind of, who wrote this article, Alice?
I found it on UK ESS, and I will search more.
Yeah, but that article is fine. I just want that, because your questions are very focused and very critical, and I like that very much. And let your question be your focus, not the article. Meaning, don't use it to promote the article. Rather, use the assignment as an opportunity to raise these concerns. What is Malaysian national identity? What is it formed by? And what does it constitute? So I like this question, because this first assignment, you may use this first assignment as the start for your final project. So your final project, you will need a section called literature review. Before you go into your analysis of the text, you may use this assignment that you are preparing. You may use it and convert it into an essay form and put it as first part of your final project. So if you write it in a way that shows you are reviewing a few articles and you're using these questions as your structure, as the form, as the basis of your discussion, you can then use the same information for your final assignment.
Okay, Doctor, I will search more articles.
Yeah, brilliant. But good job, good job.
And I have a question, Doctor.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I want to know the national identities of Malaysian in 2020. Yeah.
I can send you the I think I already sent you the article by Shamsul Amri about plural society, multi-ethnic, multicultural. I think I've shared that with you. This is a very tricky answer, because based on the construct of authority-defined social reality and everyday-defined social reality, the authority has a kind of a definition, and that definition is based on the policy of the land, or the rule of the land. And the rule of the land is the identity, the national identity of the country is based on the identity, the culture, the language of the majority in this land, which is the Malay. So the Malay community's culture and language forms the national identity of this country. So that is the official sense. And so you have what is known as the national identity. But then over the years, the politicians have also developed or constructed various constructs to promote a more unified sense of identity. So we had this construct called Bangsa Malaysia. Bangsa means nation. So Tun Mahathir, when he first became the Prime Minister back in the 80s, 90s, he was the Prime Minister for 20 plus years. He came up with many policies. One of his policies was this thing called Bangsa Malaysia Vision 2020. So these are all political concepts or political ideologies towards the promotion of a more unified Malaysia because of our multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious, multilingual background. The politicians, through their authority-defined social reality, constructs these aspects. But we also have the national pledge. We call it Rukun Negara. We've got 5 aspects where we focus on. And these 5 aspects include belief in God, loyalty to the king, and I forget the other. Jen, you want to fill me up with the Rukun Negara? I haven't said the pledge in a long time. So these 5 aspects. Jen, do you remember?
I'm translating to English in my mind.
Okay. Kepercayaan kepada Tuhan, belief in God, kesetiaan kepada raja, meaning
to the king,
loyalty to your king, kepatuhan undang-undang, meaning you obey the law of the land,
pelembagaan kedaulatan, keluhuran pelembagaan kedaulatan undang-undang, kesopanan dan kesusiaan. Okay, so you believe in God, you obey or you respect the king, you obey the law, and you upkeep the law, you obey the law, you upkeep the law and you obey the law, and you upkeep the constitution. Whatever is in the constitution, you upkeep that, you don't challenge that. And there's a kind of courtesy. Kesopanan is like courtesy and the way you deal with each other. You do it with a kind of courtesy, respectability and courtesy. Well done, Jennifer. Wow, I remember. Woo!
I know, I remember doing that at school last time, long time ago. So anyway, so these are the fundamentals of Malaysian national identity. So that, like I said, there is that authority defined, and then the everyday folk defined. When you come to Malaysia, when you're part of the land, you will have different experiences. When you go to one part of the land, you have different experiences. So when you ask a question like, what is the national identity of the country, the authority has their own. Then the everyday folk, when they want to eat, a particular dish, as long as it's available and within their religious foundations, it's within their religious foundations, is acceptable. Like as a Muslim, is halal. As a Hindu who practices the Hinduism, they cannot eat beef, for instance. So and some of them are more vegetarian. So as long as it abides by these. Like for instance, I love dim sum. Jennifer, do you like dim sum?
Yes.
Yeah, I love dim sum. My daughter does not like dim sum at all. My husband and I, we love dim sum. So once in a while, we will have dim sum at home. For Huda and Ali, dim sum is like dumplings. It's tasty. You steam it. It's more Chinese delicacy. Okay.
Yes.
But we also. Sorry.
I've tasted. It's delicious.
Oh, you've tasted it. Okay, brilliant. So you have a point.
Kind of kubba in Arab word.
Dim sum.
Yeah, it is kind of kubba, but kubba, I don't want to say more delicious. because we put, this spicy and meat, onions, and something. It's more complicated than your cooking dish.
Right, but dim sum, what I like is it's very light, but it's very filling. So it's basically dumplings, and inside you have prawn. I'm not sure. Is there any other type, Jennifer? Because so far we bought are all prawn based.
But
I'm already salivating.
good.
Sorry?
Prawn-based dim sums are good. There's like chicken, there's beef, there's also pork, and yes.
So how we celebrate, in answer to Alice's question, which I think is very relevant, how Malaysians celebrate their Malaysian identity. They might celebrate it by saying, I feel like having some Indian today. I feel like having some Chinese today. Like today's my husband's birthday. So for lunch we had Western, and for dinner I told him, okay, we'll buy Japanese. Because it's his birthday, so I'm going to treat him for lunch and for dinner. So it's like the everyday folk, people who are living in this country, the way they celebrate their national identity, maybe through the language, they speak the language, or through their what they wear, or through the food that they eat, or through the way they deal with each other. Maybe you will speak, and you will use certain kind of phrases, in communication with each other. But the authority, the people who kind of like sets the rules of law and the policies and all that, they will also have it. So that's a very important question that you are asking. But for the purpose of this discussion, let's say that the national identity is based on, according to the law in the 1970s, based on the 1970 law, the national language is Malay. The national culture is predominantly based on the Malay culture, and the official religion is Islam. So that's the official statement. Yeah. Help, Alice?
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Any other question, Alice, before we go on to the next?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Okay,
Doctor,
who
I have a
wants to go
question, if you
next?
don't mind.
Yes. Please, Ali.
Sorry, Doctor. My question is, should we have add here to specific articles, or we are free to choose any articles that we are interested in?
What was the first part of the question? I didn't hear that. Should we?
Should we add here to specific articles, or there are many articles that we are free to choose any one of them?
Yeah, you can choose any articles. What is important is, you see, it's chicken and egg. You can start by saying, okay, I want to review the Malaysian national identity in Malaysian literature. So I'm going to read all these articles, and I'm going to discuss how they represent Malaysian identity. That's a huge undertaking. This is only 20 marks, so don't put yourself through too much. So I would suggest start by identifying one article that you review. Look at that article and come up with key questions that you want to answer. Then you may find other articles to help you answer those key questions. Maybe question number 2, you can find another article. Maybe question number 3, you can find one more article, like that. So your assignment is more about what is the statement that you want to say about the state of Malaysian literature in English. What are some questions you want answered, and which articles help you do that, like that. Does that help?
Okay, Doctor, yes. Thank you very much.
Start with one, come up with some questions based on that one, and then use other articles to help answer the questions. Maybe 3 questions, 3 research questions. That will be good.
So may have I have only sorry, one article or more than one article?
I would say more than one article because, like I told Alice, what you do for this assignment, you can help develop your final assignment. Your final assignment, you will need to show more reading than just one article. But if you start now, the final assignment becomes a lot easier. Whereas if this assignment, you only read one article, the final assignment, you find that you are having to do more. But if you have already done the literature review in this assignment, you can use the same assignment to develop the final project. And in the final project, you just need to incorporate textual analysis. Then it becomes less of a work.
Yeah, Doctor, my question was about the assignment that I will prepare for the next week about the video assignment. So
Yes.
I will have to choose only one article. Is that right?
You start with one article, but if you find that you have other articles to also help support some of the things that you are saying in the video essay, you can bring it in. You don't have to say, oh, I cannot bring that in because I'm only doing one assignment, one essay. It's not like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you very much. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Sir, Doctor?
Yes.
I have one article that you recommended. This is the RK Voices of Malaysian Indian writer writing in English.
Okay.
I use it for the, you know, the to inaugurate my my presentation today. And I have something like the plural society in sociological theory. If I concentrate on these two, can I say something about, for example, creativity and multiculturalism? But I couldn't find something that I can, you know, to upload it and to take notice about it, because I like this plural society. This what makes the creativity of literature in Malaysia or wherever country that has you know, multicultural or many ethnic groups. And I have these four prominent languages in Malaysia. So how can I use these two aspects or concepts?
You know, when somebody gives me a topic or something like that, the first thing that I would do is just to Google that very topic and see what kind of things that I'm able to get. Okay, that's my article. Yay. You know, Huda, that's a very good, actually, you've got a very good topic when you say creativity and multicultural Malaysia or Malaysian fiction. I have added that. So you may look at this article also, multiple literary identities in contemporary Malaysian literature. That's an important one. When we talk about creativity in Malaysia, one way the creativity comes across is in the way the language is used, you know, in the way Malaysian English is used. So one of the topics that we will also be discussing in this course is the Malaysian English, the variety of Malaysian English that colors Malaysian literature, you know. So you may be interested in this article, the use of Malaysian English in creative writing. You know, like I said, in this review assignment, you don't have to review everything about that paper. Rather, you review based on the questions that you want to probe. You know, like Alice mentioned, 5 questions just now. that becomes the focus. These 5 questions become the focus of her presentation, not any one article. So maybe one of the questions she is able to find from this article, maybe another one of the questions she is able to find the answer to that from this other article, and the third question she's able to find from this article. So in the end, she has read maybe 3 to 5 articles in order to discuss the state of Malaysian national identity in fiction. So suddenly her work becomes more comprehensive, rather than if she just focuses on one article and talk about this article from A to Z, from the beginning to the end. What's this article about? What else did Jerome 2016 said? And that's not the point of the assignment. Okay, the point of the assignment is for you to raise critical ideas about Malaysian literature that you find in past research. I hope that's understandable. Huda, is that okay?
Okay, doctor, but have you shared any article now?
I have only shared one of mine on KS Maniam, this one, themes and recognition, themes of recognition and verification. That's the only one I have shared. That was based on my own PhD research. Yeah, I've sent another article out to Kajian Malaysia last year, the same journal. They have accepted it for publication, but they say it's only coming out end of next year or middle of next year because their issues are all full. So once I get confirmation, I will share the manuscript. That one is also on Malaysian literature. On a memoir by Bernice Chowli, this Punjabi Malaysian Chinese Indian. Her father is Punjabi, her mom is Chinese. Punjabi is another ethnic community from India, besides Indian. Yeah. So I wrote about her memoir, talking about trauma, because her father died in a freak accident. And Bernice was a witness to that, so she kind of went through huge trauma. Her memoir was about that, so I wrote about that, and it's inshallah it's coming out next year. I wrote to them yesterday, and they said this year it will not be published, but maybe next year June or something like that. So once I get confirmation, and then I will share the manuscript. Once I know when it's coming out, I will share the manuscript, not the published version. But yeah, so do search in Google Scholar if you are interested to search. You know, there are other journals besides such journals like Kajian Malaysia, as well as Asiatic. You know, last week I mentioned this one, Asiatic. Asiatic is a journal in International Islamic University, Asia, and the previous chief editor, Professor Muhammad Qayyum, who is now back in Australia, he was very much interested in Malaysian literature in English. So the previous issues like this one, December 2018, there was a special issue on 21st century Malaysia. So this will be, I'll share the link. Oopsie daisy. I'll share the link so that you all can get. The reason I'm making this assignment, the reason I'm getting you to look for it yourself is because I want you to develop research skills. You know, I want, rather than I give you a kind of like the reading and the things, I want you to develop your own skill sets of how do I look for these articles, where can I find them, what kind of keywords do I Google to find these articles, you know. So develop critical research skills so that it can help you throughout your master's program, as well as later when you finish your master's and you're working. Your critical skills beyond your qualification is going to take you further. Okay, is that all right? Any other questions, Huda?
No, thank you, Doctor.
All right,
Thank you
cool.
very much.
You can message me, you can WhatsApp further for any clarification.
Yes, Doctor, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Why don't you ask the questions that you had, so maybe we can learn from each other.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll make it quick. So I think I got the idea of the assignment wrong because I looked through Lee Kao's Ripple. I really enjoyed this short story. So when I looked through this short story, one of the most prominent issue that came to my mind was actually the protagonist masculinity. It's not I'm not entirely looking at gender roles. So I was trying to look I was googling masculinity in Malaysian literature, and I found out that this topic is not it's not that I couldn't find a few. I only could find like one or two, and it was very vague. And then I tried searching for gender roles, but every time when I look for gender roles, it always had, I feel like it was a little bit biased to the female.
Yes.
I understand that feminism and everything is like, I know there's like the inequality between men and women between the roles, but I just want to know more about why masculinity is like, how masculinity is based as such. So yeah.
Okay.
So
Jen,
yes.
that what you are describing is assignment 2.
Yeah, I just realized that it was like in
So you've gone ahead with assignment 2. So do not throw it out. It's very important work.
Yeah,
But
I was
now
thinking
but now you need to work on assignment 1 first. So
Yes.
assignment 1, it says here, you're supposed to conduct a review of literature in the area of Malaysian literature. So my suggestion is, so since you already have a kind of a scope that you are interested in,
Yes.
so you've got the scope, and the scope is this particular writer that you are interested in, and you're interested in the particular writer's representation of masculinity.
Yes.
So this scope is for assignment 2.
Okay. And Doctor, I just realized that I was thinking for this video assignment 1, I managed to find one article is about gender and masculinity. So I was thinking I will try to expand from that particular article and combine a few. And then I will further elaborate it on assignment 2. And then for my paper, I just realized that masculinity can also be seen in K.S. Maniam's Return. So I was thinking, may I compare, like compare or combine the essence of so-called masculinities in the male characters in Shirikao's Ripple and K.S. Maniam's Return. It's kind of vague. Right now it's like all over my head because all these ideas came, but yeah.
Okay, I'm going to teach you how to work smart.
Okay,
Since you already have a kind of an interest. So you started by looking at assignment 2. You're looking at, you're interested in discussing masculinity on specifically masculinity in Shirley's short stories, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so keep that for assignment 2, because assignment 2 is very narrow. It's focusing predominantly on one writer.
Okay.
So based on assignment 2, based on assignment 2, my suggestion is kind of create the literature review for that assignment.
Yes.
So what that means is, don't just review about masculinity, review about gender identity in Malaysian literature.
Okay, gender identity.
or gender construction or gender identity in Malaysian literature in English. MLE, I just put it as MLE, huh?
Okay.
So for this, like I told Huda and Ali and Alice, try to review about 5 articles. So you may have some questions. Maybe you want to have how is Malaysian literature in English? How does it construct gender identities? How does it construct female identities? How does it construct male identities? You may have some questions. You have research questions here.
Okay.
Based on this research question, you will then be able to identify the gap. And that gap will help inform your final assignment, your assignment 4.
Okay.
That assignment, assignment 4, will start with where you left off in assignment 1.
Okay.
And assignment 2 can take one aspect. Don't bring in Manyam and all the rest of it. Just focus only on one writer, maybe one writer's a few stories by that one writer, looking at that gender or the masculinity. And then you expand that for your final project. This is like a full journal article, like a 20-page
like last semester,
like our
assignment.
comparative literature course. Yes.
Okay.
So for this one, you need more than one writer. So if you do a kind of like a survey, you want to look at the first generation, the second generation, and even the contemporary writers, then you can do that better with assignment 4. Assignment 2 is another narrow scope. Okay. Best to take only one writer. Don't bring in too many writers, because when you compare and contrast, when you want to do compare and contrast, you know, you will have a kind of like Manyam is second generation 20th century writer. Shirley is
generation.
Emerging 21st century writer. One is a female, another one is a male. One is of Chinese ancestry, another one is of Indian ancestry. So the points of convergence is more. Okay. The points of divergence is more. The points of convergence is not that much.
Okay.
There's not much that connects them.
Okay.
So it will be better to save this for your final assignment.
Okay. But doctor, so technically masculinity is a it's a sub topic from gender identity along, is it? Or it's like own?
It's a very good question. For the longest time, prose writing in the world, both the Western world and elsewhere, is dominated by male writers.
Okay.
So even in English literature, female writers like Charlotte Bronte, Virginia Woolf, Jane Austen, George Eliot, it took them a while to gain prominence.
Okay.
And even then, their writing was not seen as
writing,
as similar or as competitive with the writings of their male counterparts.
Okay.
So when feminism came into place, feminism set out to promote or to empower or raise the status of female writers, as well as the representation of women's stories.
Okay.
So in in male writings, the point of view tends to be from the men's, not so much from the women's. So when feminism, took root in the 20th century in the West, and then later on it came to other parts of the world, women writing as well as stories on and by women was given more recognition.
Okay.
So that's why when you talk about gender studies, it tends to focus primarily on women's stories.
Okay.
Right? But you're right, because I feel one aspect of gender studies that has not been given enough attention is masculinity, the study of masculinity. So I agree with you. My master student Mariam did a brilliant
the Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, she got a distinction for her thesis, and she will be presenting next week at our webinar.
Yes.
Around 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. So I would highly encourage all of us to attend. I know for Huda and Ali, it would be the crack of dawn for you. But do try to attend and just to kind of gain the experience. These are the kind of things that people have been working on. And then it might open up your avenue. It might give you some ideas of research that you may want to explore later.
Okay.
Yeah. What other questions did you have?
No, I was just kind of like, not say confused. It's really to me to find something about men.
Yeah, I agree.
In gender. So I was thinking, I don't want to go to the gender, like the gender role thing, like how we female would be, how men would be. I'm not particularly into that. I want something else. So I'm just trying to find out what is it. So okay, doctor, I'll look into it.
You can get as much as you can, and then you can say the gap is this. That not enough is being done, and the discussion on representation of the men tends to be in this kind of binary. Men tend to be represented as this, and women tends to be represented as that. But what you are interested in is the way masculinity is constructed in Malaysian literature, and then you can do assignment 2.
Okay, thank you, doctor.
Welcome. Okay, good. All right. Last few minutes. Any questions from anybody else?
No, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
So for next week, be prepared to showcase your video essay. I will send you the rubric, the marking scheme for the video essay, so that you know what I am expecting from you from your video essay, and then we will proceed with the coming weeks. We will proceed with the other aspects. So if you've got any questions, please message me. If you need to see me before next Thursday, if you need to see me for a short while for discussion, just let me know. I can always try to organize something, you know, even if it's just half an hour. We can either do WhatsApp call or, you know, whatever's convenient. So if it will help you prepare your assignment better, do take the opportunity to consult with me. And I'm told, Jennifer, do you know if tomorrow is a public holiday?
I don't think so, doctor, because Deepavali is on Sunday, right? Saturday.
Because we just had a meeting. I had a 5-hour meeting from 9 o'clock until 1:30 just now.
Oh wow.
And one of the things was that somebody raised that tomorrow is a public holiday. So, you know, if it is not, then, you know, you may also bother me tomorrow. Actually, you may bother me even if it's not, even if it's a public holiday, because I'll be working anyways. Yeah.
Sorry, doctor.
Yeah.
For next week, we have to upload our video assignments. But what will we have to discuss through the next session?
No, next week's session is assignment week. Next week is assignment week. That means on Thursday, each of you will play your video essay. I will take marks. I will give you comments, and I will give you a grade for your first assignment. That's what next week's class will be about.
Oh, doctor, I checked the calendar. Sorry. Saturday is Deepavali. Sunday is the Deepavali holiday. So maybe Friday.
Is it Friday or Monday then?
I checked the calendar. It's Deepavali is only 14 and 15, so it's a Saturday Sunday thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Cool. So Ali, in answer to your question, next Thursday's class is we are going to watch your video essays, inshallah.
Okay, I see, doctor. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So once the video essays are complete, do upload them on UKM Folio so that on Thursday we can just play it so that everybody gets to view it, and I will mark you and I will give you your grade, inshallah, on Thursday.
Okay, doctor. Thank you very much.
Okay, doctor.
Okay, any other questions?
So far, okay.
Thank you. No.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, doctor. No question.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good week, the rest of the week, and try to make it for the webinar. Is not next week, is it?
Doctor,
It's-
actually, we are involved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But is it next week or the week
Yeah, it's
Yes.
the week. Yeah, next week. It's on
Next
the
week.
On Wednesday,
18th.
doctor.
Yeah.
On Wednesday? Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so all of you are involved?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
doctor.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay, good,
Of
good,
course.
good, good. Yeah,
As
so
Dr. Ravi sent us a message and told us that everyone should attend the webinar next week.
yeah, because include that as part of your learning. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yes.
Good. Good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
So
sir.
inshallah, I will see you Wednesday, and
Okay.
also
Inshallah.
if not sooner.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you,
Okay,
doctor.
sir.
Take care,
Thank you very much.
everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.